RPG Maker 2000 is a game development kit for Windows which makes creating a functioning RPG unbelievably easy. Now, when you talk about playing games that have been made with RPG Maker 2000, there's one major drawback, and that's this. Anyone can make an RPG with this program. This creates a problem when half-finished projects and poorly thought-out games are dumped into the internet for you to wade through. When playing a game, if I get stuck on a puzzle, oftentimes I wonder if the game was tested enough to make sure the puzzle works. Most of the time, I find that the game has in fact been broken in some way. The best way to enjoy making an RPG is to find a friend with similar interest and trade work back and forth. Me and my good friend NG Varatsu have been doing this since about 2001. My tagged video that I did a while back, I mentioned an RPG Maker project called Zion Story, which my friend and I have been working on for several years. When that video came out, it attracted some attention to the game. Well, I polished up what I had and I sent it over to my partner NG, and we're waiting for him to put out the finishing touches so we can release a demo. I've learned over the years that waiting for an RPG Maker project to come out is like waiting for frogs to fall from the sky. You vaguely remember reading somewhere that it happened a long time ago, but it won't ever happen again. Ever. That's not to say Zion Story won't ever come out. It will. But I found a better use of my time than sitting around waiting. I started working on a little gem of my own. Ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you Kolteka. Kolteka is the story of an unlikable protagonist soldier named Reston, who's always butting heads with his nemesis Randy. He can't seem to get along with, perhaps because they're so much alike. Anyway, the country they reside in, Forsha, is mostly peaceful, but things start to get dicey when a man named Janus crosses a dimensional gap with the aid of his two sisters. So why call it Kolteka of all things? Well, I did mention the dimensional gap. Kolteka is the name of the primary threat, but I'm not ready to spoil any more, so you'll have to use your imagination. But on that note, let's talk about where this game comes from. Kolteka was a story my good friend NG, yes, the same NG working on Zion Story, made up way back 1998-ish or so. Believe it or not, he made this primitive RPG from the ground up in click and play, complete with 100% MS Paint graphics. It was eventually lost in a PC crash, as it was the days before thumb drives. It would be nice to see that version today. We'd probably get a good laugh about how primitive it was. But there was still something special about it. NG had managed to make a fully functioning RPG out of a system designed for simple Windows games like Pong. Also, the story was intriguing. Time marched on, and every new game-making platform saw its own version of Kolteka. There was a Kolteka for Click and Play, Kolteka on RPG Maker 95, several Koltekas on RPG Maker 2K, even a Kolteka 2 on RPG Maker 2K, with two selectable paths to choose from. The story mutated a little with each version, and unfortunately none of these versions survived at all. As we moved on to other things, the two main characters, Reston and Randy, would have little inside cameos in any other project NG worked on, including Zion Story. I suddenly felt a rush of nostalgia one day, so I drew up a little story using bits and pieces from different versions we could remember, and with NG's permission, started building a new Kolteka. So something, at least a vague representation of this series, would be playable and archivable for self-indulgent, nostalgic purposes at least. This game is my ode to that series. As I developed the game, I kept a debug room, complete with notes, teleports, sprite tests, and debug options. NG and I usually do this to have a little space for us to leave messages to each other. You can see here in earlier versions of the game, the debug rooms were being built by NPCs. This debug room has been left finished in the demo as a prize for completion. It features options to see portions of the game not yet included in the demo, and you can also replay the game with a kill everything ability. Also, I mentioned that Reston and Randy were prone to cameos in other RPG Maker projects. Well, this room here, complete with Reston and Randy playing the guitar, has a few cameos also. NG plays characters who were supposed to be older versions of themselves, from older versions of Kolteka who have come to hang out. My favorite is this character. Let me explain. One of NG's oldest projects was a game entitled Upolis. The basic story was two brothers and their younger sister were left orphans with the mysterious death of their parents. The older brother, Dias, leaves home and apparently goes on a murderous rampage, leaving his younger brother, Ridge, whom you play, to take care of their sister, Yulia. One thing that made this game stick out in my mind is the hero. Ridge was a fairly good guy and ultimately good-natured, but he was also hot-headed and short-tempered, and he had a tendency to chew out people for nothing. The game featured in excess of 250 maps, including mini-games, dungeons, massive towns, huge events, and every bit of 10 hours of gameplay. This game was the testing grounds for Engie to sharpen his skill. It has also since been corrupted due to lost data from old computers. But one day, just as I'm remaking Kolteka now, I hope Engie will pursue a remake. Until then, here Ridge sits on the steps of the debug room, taking requests. You can choose to listen to MIDIs used in the demo, MIDIs used in older versions of Kolteka, and MIDIs used in the click-and-play version from more than a decade ago. This demo, downloadable in the sidebar, according to the time log I've kept, took almost 30 hours to build about 45 minutes of gameplay. The project took on a life of its own, especially the part where I could lay in the interactions between Reston and the other supporting characters. To see those characters live, think, and talk again on the computer monitor was one of the most pleasing things I've done in a long time. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you'll take some time out to play this little secret game. And the Zion story demo will be coming along before too long as well. I'm Critical Failure for Tiger Claw TV, signing off.